If your grocery bill feels heavier in 2026, you are not imagining it. And no, it is not because you are shopping badly, or because you missed some secret trick everyone else somehow knows. The pressure is built into the system. Prices move unevenly. Packages shrink quietly. Fresh food spoils faster than your schedule can keep up. And the cart that used to feed a household for a week somehow comes home looking smaller than ever, while the receipt keeps climbing. That is the real trap. Not one dramatic price spike. It is the slow squeeze. The store still looks normal. The shelves still look familiar. But the math has changed underneath you. So this video is not about panic buying. It is not about hoarding. It is about protection. Specifically, the shelf-stable grocery items that help households keep meals usable, reduce waste, and buy time when prices move against you. Because the biggest grocery losses do not always come from what you paid. A lot of the damage comes from what got thrown away, forgotten, spoiled, or replaced with an expensive backup order because there was nothing flexible left in the kitchen. That is where smart pantry buying starts, not with fear, with control. Look at the grocery aisle today and you will notice something strange. Almost every category has become less forgiving. Fresh food costs more. Portions feel tighter. The same ingredients appear in slightly smaller packages. And when you are tired, rushed, or trying to feed other people, that is when the hidden cost shows up. Not just the cost of the item. The cost of returning to the store. The cost of ordering out. The cost of wasting half of what you bought because it did not fit real life. So let us start with the first group. The boring staples that do a lot more work than they get credit for. Dry beans are one of the strongest examples. They are not exciting. They are not marketed like a solution. But they are one of the easiest ways to keep a meal possible when everything else gets expensive. They store well, they stretch into soups and bowls, and they can replace a more expensive protein on a night when the budget is already under pressure. If you do not want to soak dry beans, that is fine. Canned beans still do the job. The point is not perfection. The point is having something that can become dinner without a fresh store run. Lentils deserve the same respect. They cook faster than many dry beans, which matters more than people think. A lot of household food waste starts with intention and ends with exhaustion. You meant to cook something from scratch, but by the time evening comes, you want the fastest path to a real meal. Lentils bridge that gap. They are cheap, flexible, and easy to mix into soup, rice, pasta sauce, or a simple skillet meal. That kind of flexibility protects your budget because it prevents the takeout decision that happens when dinner feels too hard. Oats are another quiet protector. People think of oats as breakfast, but they are really a time saver. They keep well, they do not need refrigeration, and they can become breakfast, a baking ingredient, or even a filler for certain recipes when you're trying to make what you have last longer. And because they are plain, they are easy to adapt to what is already in the pantry. That is the value of a staple. It does not demand a perfect plan. It gives you a starting point. Rice belongs in the same category, with even more reach. Rice is one of those pantry foods that changes based on what you put next to it. Beans, eggs, canned vegetables, tuna, sauce, broth. It all works. That matters because a good pantry is not about building a giant pile of separate meals. It is about building combinations. Rice gives you a base that can absorb whatever else is available, and that reduces waste. Now here is where a lot of people make a mistake. They buy the staple, then they forget the rest of the meal. Because if the food is cheap but nobody wants to eat it, it still becomes waste. And waste is where grocery bills quietly explode. That is why flavor matters. People often treat seasoning like a luxury, but from a household budget point of view, it is insurance. A little garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, chili flakes, curry powder, or Italian seasoning can rescue ingredients that would otherwise feel repetitive and dry. If your food tastes flat, you are more likely to order something else or let leftovers sit untouched until they go bad. Flavor keeps food usable. That is not a small thing. That is how you turn a pantry from storage into actual meals. Acid does the same job. Vinegar, lemon juice, pickled vegetables, and sauces can change the entire feeling of a dish. A bowl of rice and beans can feel plain one day and complete the next if you add a little acid and seasoning. That small shift can save money because it keeps people from getting tired of the same foods too quickly. Hot sauce, soy sauce, mustard, salsa, and even a basic jarred pasta sauce are not just extras. They are stretch tools. They help leftovers feel different. They help simple ingredients feel finished. They make the food on hand more likely to get eaten, and that is a direct protection against waste. Now let us talk about protein, because this is where refrigeration stress starts to matter. Fresh meat is useful, but it is also one of the easiest places for money to disappear. If your schedule changes, if the power goes out, if the fridge is crowded, or if you simply do not get to the food in time, expensive protein turns into a loss. Shelf-stable protein reduces that pressure. Canned tuna is still one of the most practical examples. It is simple, affordable in many stores, and easy to use without much prep. Tuna salad, pasta, rice bowls, crackers, sandwiches. It does not demand much from the kitchen. That is exactly why it helps. It gives you a fast protein option that does not depend on perfect timing. Sardines are even more interesting because they are often overlooked, yet they can be a strong value when you actually use them. They are shelf-stable, compact, and adaptable. Some people eat them right from the tin. Others mix them into pasta or spread them on toast. The point is not that everyone has to love sardines. The point is that shelf-stable protein options do not all need to look the same. Variety matters because food fatigue is real. Canned chicken or shelf-stable chicken pouches can fill a similar role. They are not glamorous, but they can help you build a meal quickly when the refrigerator is not offering much. That is valuable in a household because the worst meal decision often happens when everyone is hungry and there is nothing easy to make. If there is a protein already waiting in the pantry, that decision gets easier. And yes, some people like shelf-stable tofu, where it is available. It is not universal in every store or region, so think of it as an example, not a requirement. But it fits the larger idea. The best pantry proteins are the ones that reduce spoilage risk and give you a way to keep cooking without a store run. Now let us shift to a category people underestimate every single time: fats, broth, and cooking liquids. These items seem small because they are not the headline of the meal, but they change what the meal becomes. Oil, butter, or butter alternatives help make basic ingredients feel complete. They also help with cooking flexibility. A dry pot of rice or pasta is one thing. A finished dish with a little fat is another. Fat helps with texture, satiety, and flavor. In practical terms, that means people are more likely to finish the meal instead of searching for something else after dinner. Broth is another quiet budget tool. Canned broth, boxed broth, bouillon, or concentrate can turn plain grains and vegetables into soup, rice, or a sauce base. If you have ever looked at a fridge full of individual leftovers and still felt like there was nothing to eat, broth is one of the things that helps solve that. It gives structure to the ingredients you already own. That is the hidden value of condiments and cooking liquids. They do not just taste good. They make ordinary food usable. And this matters more in 2026 than it used to because the household cost problem is no longer just price. It is friction. It is the extra effort required to make food work. If a meal takes too much effort, too much cleanup, too much planning, or too much hope that everybody will still want it tomorrow, it becomes vulnerable. That is why the smartest pantry items are often the ones that make dinner easier to finish. Now, before we go further, take a breath and look at the pattern here. Every item we have talked about so far solves one of four problems: shelf life, flavor, flexibility, comfort. That is the real framework. A good pantry is not a bunker. It is not a pile of random cans. It is not a reaction to fear. It is a system that reduces waste, saves time, and keeps ordinary meals possible when prices move against you. Once you see that, the rest of the list stops looking like a grocery list and starts looking like household insurance. And that is a much calmer way to shop. So now let us move into the items people forget, because these are the ones that quietly protect meal balance. Canned vegetables are one of the easiest ways to keep a meal from becoming too one-note. Corn, green beans, carrots, peas, tomatoes, mixed vegetables. These are not just side dishes. They are ways to add color, fiber, and a sense of normalcy when fresh produce is expensive or not being used fast enough. A pantry without vegetables tends to drift toward heaviness and repetition. That gets old fast. Canned tomatoes deserve special attention because they are not just vegetables. They are a base. You can turn them into soup, sauce, stew, chili, or a fast skillet meal. They are one of the best examples of a shelf-stable item that keeps paying off because it can become many different things. Fruit cups or canned fruit can also help, especially when fresh fruit gets expensive or bruises too quickly. They are not a replacement for everything fresh fruit does, and they should not be treated like a miracle food. But they can keep a household from feeling like every meal is built from the same heavy ingredients. A little sweetness can make a pantry feel more livable. Powdered milk is another old-school backup that still makes sense for many households. It is not for everyone, and people should check what works for their family, but it can reduce spoilage risk and provide a shelf-stable dairy option when fresh milk is not practical to keep on hand. That matters in a real kitchen because some meals, drinks, and baking recipes are simply easier when you have a backup that lasts longer. Evaporated milk is similar. It can be useful in baking, cooking, and certain sauces. It is one more way to keep recipes available without depending entirely on the refrigerator. And then there are the comfort items. The foods that are not the center of the meal but keep the household from getting tired of the plan. Pasta is one of the most reliable base foods in that category. It stores well, it cooks quickly, and it can be paired with almost anything in the pantry. Tomato sauce, canned meat, beans, vegetables, oil, garlic, cheese if you have it. Pasta is useful because it changes shape depending on what else is available. Dry noodles, rice noodles, or even ramen can do similar work, depending on what your household likes. Ramen is not a perfect food, and nobody should pretend it is. But as a budget bridge on a busy week, it can prevent a more expensive backup meal. If you add a little egg, frozen vegetable, or canned protein, it becomes much more than the package suggests. That is the broader lesson here. Convenience is not the enemy. Bad convenience is the enemy. When people are tired, the household often pays a premium for convenience because there was nothing ready to bridge the gap. But if you already have quick meal bases in the pantry, you can protect yourself from the expensive decision that happens at 6 p.m. when everyone is hungry and nobody wants to cook from scratch. Now let us talk about another class of items that stretches food without making it feel like punishment. Binder foods and texture helpers. Breadcrumbs, crackers, tortilla chips, shelf-stable wraps, and even plain cereal in some situations can help turn leftovers into something usable. They add crunch, structure, or a second life to ingredients that would otherwise go untouched. Leftover chicken becomes a sandwich filling. Extra vegetables become a soup starter. A few crackers and a can of tuna become lunch. These are small moves, but small moves are what keep waste down. And waste is the silent tax in most grocery budgets. You paid for the food, then you paid again because it spoiled or nobody wanted it, or the recipe was too hard to repeat. That second loss is what makes grocery inflation feel even worse than the sticker price alone. So the goal is not just buying food, it is buying usable food. That brings us to one more practical category: stable sweet or morale items. This is not frivolous. Morale matters. If a pantry is all duty and no relief, people stop cooperating with it. A small jar of jam, peanut butter, shelf-stable pudding, cocoa mix, or a simple snack item can keep the whole system more livable. That helps protect the budget because it reduces the urge to leave the house for an extra treat or order a snack because nobody feels satisfied. Peanut butter, in particular, still does a lot of work in many households. It stores well, it can be breakfast, lunch, or a quick snack, and it helps bridge the gap between meals. It is not magic, it is just useful, and useful is what we are after. If you are trying to build a smarter pantry in 2026, that word should keep coming up. Useful, not fancy, not trendy. Useful, because useful foods make the household more stable in ordinary life. They keep you from overpaying for convenience, They keep you from wasting fresh food because you had no backup. They keep dinner from becoming a daily emergency. And they do it without asking you to stock a bunker or pretend the world is ending. What you are really buying is breathing room. And that brings us to the final part of the list. The long view buys that quietly keep paying off. Salt is the obvious one, but it is still worth saying. A pantry without salt is a pantry that struggles. It keeps food from tasting finished, and it is one of the cheapest ways to make a lot of ingredients more usable. Alongside salt, basic spices, vinegar, and shelf-stable sauces can remain useful for a very long time when stored properly. Cooking oils also deserve rotation. They are not exciting, but they are essential. They help cook food, improve texture, and prevent meals from feeling dry or thin. If you use them regularly and replace them before they go stale, they continue to serve the kitchen without drama. Some households also keep shelf-stable cheese or specialty canned dairy products where available. But these can vary a lot by region, and not everyone will find them useful or affordable. So the rule is simple. If a product fits your household, stores well, and genuinely gets used, it can be worth including. If not, skip it. The goal is not to collect rare items. The goal is to reduce waste and increase options. That is the full pattern. A strong pantry in 2026 is built around 4 questions. How long will it last? Can it add flavor? Can it flex into more than one meal? Will people actually eat it? If the answer is yes, the item is probably protecting your budget. If the answer is no, it may just be clutter with a grocery receipt attached. So the smartest approach is gradual. Buy what fits. Rotate what you use. Pay attention to sales without reacting out of fear. Add a few shelf-stable pieces when the price is right. Build around meals your household already eats. That is how you avoid waste and avoid panic at the same time. And if you want the deepest protection, think about your pantry as a system, not a shelf. 1 shelf-stable protein. 1 easy grain. 1 vegetable backup. 1 flavor builder. 1 comfort item. 1 breakfast option. That is enough to turn a shaky week into an ordinary week, and ordinary weeks are what protect the budget. Because that is really the point. The grocery crisis does not only show up as higher prices. It shows up as fragility. It shows up when your food choices are too narrow, when everything depends on perfect timing, and when one missed shopping trip turns into a bigger bill later. The answer is not fear. It is flexibility. The households that feel more in control are not the ones buying the most. They are the ones wasting less, substituting better, and understanding what each item is actually for. So when you shop now, look for the job the food performs. Does it last? Does it stretch? Does it make other ingredients easier to use? Does it reduce stress? Does it prevent the expensive backup plan? That is the consumer protection mindset. If this video helped you see groceries a little differently, stay with us. There is a lot more to uncover about the quiet ways households lose money and the simple choices that give it back.